Hi everyone. In this video, I wanted to touch a little bit on using Eloqua to evaluate your data quality or your data integrity. And the first thing I wanted to say is that first and foremost, Eloqua does not really exist for this purpose. And I want to call that out at the top because some folks do tend to begin to look at Eloqua in this way because it has a lot of tools and things at your disposal that um, can help you with data quality issues. But for instance, when we used to do a lot of Salesforce integrations using the native Salesforce integration, there were a lot of times where duplicates in Salesforce were an issue with Eloqua, and people would start to look at Eloqua as a solution to that problem. So I urge you to not really think of Eloqua in this way, but to also recognize that it is important to check these things and to do something about them. So I want to just go over a little bit about, some of the tools that Eloqua gives you to be able to check things. And we won't talk in this video about what to do about it, but I just wanted to raise some points about some of the different tools that are present in Eloqua. So the first one is Program Canvas. Program Canvas is taking over for Program Builder, and it does a lot of the same things that Program Builder did. Maybe not all of those things, although I hope in the future that a lot of the data tools will find a replacement in the Program Canvas, like match rules, for instance, would be killer. Oracle. But aside from those things, which you can still use outside of Program Builder directly on lists, for instance, Program Canvas is very flexible, it's very fast, and it gives us a lot of great tools. The ones that I really want to mention in this video are its decisioning logic, of course. We have all those built-in decisions, the filters that you can use directly within decision steps, as well as shared filters. And you also have the ability to use cloud apps to even get more dynamic, I guess you could say, with your decisioning. For instance, we have created several apps that allow you to do field comparisons across fields, and there are various different iterations of that. So Program Canvas can be a very valuable tool to run context through, to do a little bit of that introspection on, to say, are there values that don't fit in a given field? Are they bad for some reason? Are they out of range? Are they the wrong data type? Things like that. And the other tool the Program Canvas gives us that I really like is the Contact Washing Machine app. And not even just because it's capable of writing values, but because it gives us access to using regular expressions. And regular expressions, to those of you who do not know, are, in my opinion, about as close to magic, like real magic, as you get when it comes to computers, aside from maybe machine learning. Regular expressions allow you to do all sorts of cool manipulations of a string of values to see what's there. And it really is something that I think everybody should know or understand to some degree, because you can use this tool to identify, values that don't belong in a field, etc. And then using the contact washing machine, you could then do something like either cleanse it directly or write into another field with some indicator, and I've used the contact washing machine in this capacity fairly often, and I find that it really helps. So moving on from there, we've got shared lists. Shared lists are another very simple but powerful tool that we can use along with these other two tools. So, your decisions, and maybe if you use the regular expression tactic I talked about, you can then combine those, or use them independently to siphon contacts off into different lists, which can simply be different buckets identifying different things about them. And this lets you then come back and look at the list and say, okay, well, who ended up here? Why did they end up here? And then you can make more appropriate decisions based on that. One tip that I would give with shared lists is if you develop like a cleansing process or some process to look at records where you pipe contacts into a list, if you keep running it, you should be sure to remove contacts from those lists at the beginning of your program so that they don't forever live on that list, especially if something changed about them and they really no longer live there. You could end up with some confusing outcomes, or a list that just grows and grows and grows and never gets cleaned up. Another good one that goes along with shared lists are the contact and account views as well. So having that list of fields that is specific to whatever it is you're trying to evaluate can be really useful too, because it really not only creates smaller files when you're exporting out of Eloqua for further analysis, but it just, keeps things a little bit more concise so you don't have to worry about so many different variables or, having to go and do extra cleanup on your exported Excel or CSV. Now, custom objects, I like to follow custom objects on the heels of shared lists because you can look at them as basically a list on steroids. You can really customize how you use the custom object to have particular fields or accept certain values. It's really open-ended in what you can do with it. But in addition to that, you also have the potential for using a custom object for a historical analysis. So if you know how to set up custom objects, you know that they support a many-to-one relationship in addition to a one-to-one. So you could use it to track a change in something over time. I guess my one word of caution there is, be conscious of the limits in Eloqua, especially when it comes to custom objects. Per custom object, you cannot have more than 5 million records, and you can't have more than 25 million overall. And I know that those sound like big numbers, but when you get into historic tracking, especially, and if you have a program that's running all the time, and maybe on your whole database, that can fill up really quickly. And we have seen some of our clients who have custom objects with literally billions of records, and this can be a real headache trying to clean up and fix, um, because they're just, with the nature of custom objects, it's not really easy to come back around and clean those up. So the next one is segments, and you may not think of segments as being useful in this regard of, the quality of your data, but I think it's important to just kind of like think outside the box when it comes to the different elements and tools and things that are present in Eloqua. And segments can really be used as like a basic reporting tool if you want. You have all these different filters that you can put in, different lists and things like that, and combine that with different contact views, and you can create a really, bare bones but powerful dashboard for, a given process or set of fields that you want to keep an eye on. So you don't ever actually have to use the segment to drive a campaign or a program. It can just live on its own, and you can use it to refresh and check in on things, export contacts for further analysis or whatever you want to do there. And then beyond that, you can of course leverage segments for a cleansing program or something like that, so that you can carve out those records from a high level that you want to then send through a workflow to further operate on or make decisions against. And one other thing I wanted to mention about segments that I don't know, maybe many people probably don't know at this point, but it was a feature addition in the last year or so, is that you can also push segments directly into a program through a listener. And the reason why I really love this feature and I think it's a cool addition is that it's ad hoc, right? You have to consciously go into a segment and make it happen, as opposed to having a segment on a canvas that is evaluated on a recurring basis. The risk there is that maybe you don't want that segment to be evaluated on a recurring basis. And, perhaps you forgot to disable the canvas or unhook the segment or something like that. Well, it's going to dutifully run on that hourly, daily, whatever basis that you have set, whether it's a campaign or program, right? So being able to just go and push into a listener is really powerful in that respect because maybe you do forget to turn off the program, but you don't have to worry about those records going in again and again and again for who knows how long. And okay, so then next up we've got reports, and of course, reports are going to give us um, different insights that we would not otherwise have because they are going to be, more thoughtful and geared toward a specific outcome. So I think it is worthwhile looking at the different dashboard reports and operational reports within Eloqua itself. And I know that Oracle is putting a lot of work with every release into improving the out-of-the-box dashboard reports. So I wouldn't write those off, and I would look at them as a starting point to dig deeper into with maybe some of these other tools that I've been talking about. And on the other side, OBIEE or Insight is it's meant for this purpose of surfacing these details. And my advice there is to look at those reports that come out of Insight that you really would have a really hard time getting out of Eloqua itself, if at all. So things like your bounce back reports, I love those. They're very, very useful. And you just literally would not be able to get a lot of that information out of Eloqua itself. You have to go to Insight to get it. And then layer in the fact that you can create custom reports and automated reports and things like that. So definitely those are things that you want to leverage if you're evaluating the overall integrity or quality of your data. Um, Now moving beyond that, we've got field dependencies. This is another one that if you're looking for the culprit of like a problem, say, looking at the field dependencies can help you narrow things down as well. So if you're looking at the contact field descriptions, you can right click on a field to view its dependencies. And then, of course, there are lots of other places where you can check dependencies throughout the tool beyond just field dependencies. But this can be a way for you to do a little bit more nuanced detective work if you, say, suspect there's an update rule or something out there doing something that it's not intended to do. And beyond all of that, I would also say that it's really important to take a step back and to prevent any bad data from getting into Eloqua to begin with, right? So this is where I think there's always a big opportunity for everyone to really constantly evaluate how, what are the different data sources going into Eloqua, and are we properly leveraging Eloqua's data priority around these different sources? And if you don't know what Eloqua's data priority is, I am here to tell you because it's actually really important to how Eloqua works, and it's not something that is really visible to everyone. So, in a nutshell, the data priority in Eloqua is a hierarchy of all of the sources of data that can feed into Eloqua. And so the higher you are up on that priority list, the more likely you will be able to write data into a mapped field. And so the basics of this list for most organizations is that manual list uploads are at the very bottom of the list because that has the highest likelihood of having dirty data. And then at the very top is the API because different integrations are going to be seen as more trustworthy of having some sort of review applied to them. So we want the API to be able to write data into mapped fields. But keep in mind that if something higher up writes data into a field, something below it will not be allowed to. And this is by design. So really common use case for this is when we have an integration with a CRM. CRM is the gold standard of data because there are people that are looking at this data all the time, especially if you use like a lead and contact model where a record is promoted from a lead to a contact. It's had multiple touches across its lifetime and multiple opportunities for someone to review that data. So it's much more trustworthy than a list that you maybe got from an event or a trade show or something like that. And so we wouldn't want a list of that nature to come in and overwrite that good data that we got from CRM. So that is really the main reason why we have this concept of data priority. But there are some caveats to this, right? So forms live outside of the data priority. And with forms in your form processing steps, that's where you manage whether or not a value should write into the contact or custom object or account or whatever. And that's on a per field basis there with those different update rules that you have present. So just keep in mind that, you know, whatever fields you map on a form could overwrite data from CRM or wherever, um, and that's expected. And then likewise, using Eloqua's update rules and the contact washing machine, those are also going to factor into this because they either, you've set up the update rules so that they would write or not, depending on those different things. All right, so then next up, beyond the data priority, you also can leverage things like form field validation, not to be overlooked, and also keep in mind that Eloqua pick lists are they're just text fields underneath, right? Or whatever data type you use, typically text. They will still accept values that are given to them because of that. So other systems you can turn on, like a field level validation type thing. So again, like say Salesforce, for instance, you can have it set up so that it rejects values that are not on the list. But Eloqua doesn't do that. So if you say this is a classic scenario, built a form in Eloqua that uses a open text field and map it to one of Eloqua's pick list fields, that field will accept whatever comes to it, provided that it matches the data type. And so the most common issue that we see along with this is country or maybe state and province, where somebody built a form with an open text field and you get the full country name instead of a 2-character code, or the opposite, you get a code instead of the full country name, depending on which one you use in your organization. And this can lead to really bad downstream effects. And so it's really important that you're consistent with how you build forms and how you upload lists so that pick lists especially are getting their expected values. And downstream from that, we can do things about that through data cleansing, but we would really prefer not to do that to begin with, right? And actually, I think that's everything I wanted to cover in this video. So if you want to hear more, if you think there's something I should have covered but didn't, let us know. And if you want to, if you want me to do a follow-up video to this talking more about actually doing cleansing, I can do that. Just let us know. All right, thank you.